No maid lasted under the new billionaire's wife until a new maid did the impossible. In a mansion filled with luxury, power, and fear, every maid that stepped foot inside was forced to endure the wrath of Regina, the billionaire's wife. With a slap for every mistake, no one had ever stood up to her until one maid, Alina, broke the cycle and changed everything. This is the story of how a single act of courage defied the odds and transformed a life filled with control into one of understanding, growth, and redemption. In the heart of a sprawling mansion, surrounded by the finest art, the most luxurious furniture, and shimmering chandeliers, lived the billionaire couple, Mark and Regina. To the outside world, they were the epitome of success, wealth, beauty, and power at their fingertips. Yet, within the walls of their home, a darker story unfolded. Regina, the wife, had a reputation for her fiery temper. The maids she hired were treated like royalty, but the moment they made the slightest mistake, they knew what was coming. It was a slap. One that echoed through the house, reminding everyone of Regina's unyielding dominance. Glasses shattered, and plates cracked as the maids scrambled to avoid her wrath. But what was more chilling than the slap itself was the cold, heartless nature of it. A simple misstep, and a maid's life in the mansion was over. Many had come and gone, all leaving in shame and defeat, their spirits broken by the relentless force of Regina's cruelty. This wasn't just a home. It was a prison of fear, where a single mistake could cost a person their livelihood, their dignity, their hope. But little did Regina know, her reign was about to meet its match. As the days turned into weeks and the weeks into months, Regina's reputation grew ever more fearsome. The mansion's pristine halls echoed with the stories of maids who had come and gone, each with dreams of a better life, only to be shattered by the weight of Regina's unforgiving temper. Each new maid entered the mansion with a sense of optimism, eager to work in a world of opulence and luxury, but that hope was quickly crushed. It started with the smallest of mistakes. A dish that was placed a little too far to the left, a delicate vase that tipped over ever so slightly, or a misplaced fork. The mistake didn't matter. What mattered was Regina's uncontrollable rage that followed. A slap across the face, followed by a cold, venomous reprimand, leaving the maid speechless, ashamed, and humiliated. This pattern repeated over and over. With each new maid, there was always a sense of temporary peace, an initial promise of harmony. But as soon as one of the maids slipped up, whether intentional or not, Regina's anger flared, her slap landing like a thunderbolt. It was always the same: humiliation, fear, and the inevitable departure of another maid, unable to endure. A cruelty for long. There was no room for mistakes in Regina's world. The maids lived in constant tension, walking on eggshells, afraid to breathe too loudly, afraid to even speak. The ones who lasted longest did so by remaining invisible, quietly going about their tasks, their self-worth eroded over time. They had learned the hard way: make no mistakes or face the consequences. It was a broken system, one where kindness and understanding were replaced by dominance and control. One rainy morning, a new maid arrived at the mansion. Her name was Alina. Unlike the previous maids, Alina came from humble beginnings, with dreams that stretched far beyond the mansion's walls. She was young, with an unwavering spirit to provide for her family, and she had no idea what awaited her in the world of Regina's empire. While she was soft-spoken, there was a fire inside her, a fire that refused to be extinguished, no matter the odds. As Alina stepped into the grand hall, she was greeted with a sense of awe. The mansion's sheer size and luxury were overwhelming. Every corner gleamed with wealth, every room designed with perfection. But for Alina, it wasn't the luxury that caught her attention. It was the silence that seemed to hang in the air, thick with tension. The maids before her had warned her Regina, the billionaire's wife, was a woman of extremes. Kindness one moment, fury the next. It was this unsettling unpredictability that made her job both a blessing and a curse. At first, Alina tried to blend in, doing everything by the book, working tirelessly to keep the mansion spotless. She was meticulous, precise, and paid attention to every detail. But the more she observed Regina, the more she realized that Regina's anger wasn't just the result of mistakes. It was something deeper, something unspoken. Regina's slaps weren't merely acts of punishment. They were desperate attempts to assert control over a life that had gotten out of her hands. The more Alina worked, the more she understood that Regina's temper wasn't random. It was a reaction to her own sense of powerlessness. Regina ruled her mansion with fear because she feared being seen for who she truly was, a woman trapped in her own gilded cage, unable to escape the expectations of society and her own inner turmoil. Alina began to approach her work with a different perspective. She wasn't just cleaning and organizing the house, she was observing, learning, understanding the heart of the problem. Every interaction with Regina became a quiet study. Alina knew that to survive in this world, she couldn't just be a maid. She had to be something more. Something that could understand the complexities of the woman she served rather than just serve her. Days turned into weeks, and Alina had learned the rhythm of the mansion, the quiet, the tension, the ever-present fear of Regina's unpredictable wrath. But Alina, unlike the others, never cowered. She was quiet, observant, and focused on her work, but there was something different about her. She wasn't afraid to stand up for herself, something that no other maid had dared to do before. Then, one fateful afternoon, the storm finally arrived. Alina had just finished dusting the grand chandelier when a mistake occurred, an accident. Something so small it could have been brushed off. Alina had accidentally spilled a drink on Regina's prized designer gown. The red wine seeped into the delicate fabric, staining it forever. The room fell silent. Regina's eyes locked onto Alina, and in that moment Alina could feel the temperature drop, the weight of the entire mansion's history of fear bearing down on her. Regina's hand rose, poised to strike, her fury building, but this time something unexpected happened. Alina didn't flinch. She didn't lower her head in shame, nor did she retreat in fear. Instead, she stood her ground, her posture firm, her gaze unwavering. The slap that everyone had come to expect, one that would send a maid packing, wasn't coming. Alina, in a calm yet powerful voice, spoke up. "It was an accident, just like your anger." Regina froze, her hands suspended in midair. For the first time, someone had spoken to her like a person, not a slave. Alina's words were simple, yet they carried an undeniable weight. It wasn't just about the spilled wine, it was about acknowledging the underlying truth that had been buried beneath the surface for so long. Regina wasn't just angry because of the mistake. She was angry because of the emptiness inside her, the bitterness of her life, and the lack of control she felt in a world that only valued her for her wealth and status. The silence in the room was deafening. Alina's eyes never wavered from Regina's, and slowly, almost imperceptibly, Regina's arm dropped. The slap never came. The tension that had once ruled the house was now broken. In that single moment, everything changed. Regina, for the first time, wasn't in control of the situation. Alina had broken the cycle of fear, and instead of punishment, she offered something more powerful: understanding. Regina's face flushed with confusion, but something else flickered in her eyes. It wasn't anger this time. It was vulnerability. For the first time, Regina saw herself not as the perfect wife, the perfect mistress of the house, but as a woman struggling just like anyone else. Alina's calmness and understanding left a profound impact on Regina. No one had ever dared to show her empathy, to see through her rage and into the woman beneath the mask. Regina, who once saw herself as a force to be reckoned with, now faced something much more powerful: the recognition of her own weaknesses and the realization that true strength lay not in domination, but in compassion. From that moment, everything shifted. Regina no longer saw Alina as just a maid, but as someone who had the power to break through the walls of her carefully constructed life. And Alina, having stood her ground, had taken the first step toward changing not just her life, but the life of the woman who had once held all the power. The days that followed were unlike anything Alina had ever imagined. Regina's cold, detached demeanor had cracked, and a deep, simmering change began to take root. The mansion, which had once been a fortress of fear, slowly transformed into a place where understanding and empathy began to take precedence. For Regina, it was as though Alina had unlocked a door to a part of her soul she had long forgotten, a door she had been too afraid to open. At first, the change was subtle. Regina began to act less like the domineering figure, who ruled with an iron fist, and more like a woman seeking something she couldn't quite define. She didn't immediately embrace Alina as a confidant, but she started asking questions about life, about the world beyond the walls of the mansion, about Alina's own experiences. It was small talk at first, but each conversation chipped away at the fortress Regina had built around her heart. Slowly, she began to see that her wealth and power could not fill the void inside her. Her temper, her obsession with control, was not a shield, it was a symptom of the deeper pain and insecurity she carried within. One evening, as Alina was tending to the garden, Regina approached her. It was an unexpected gesture, one that sent a ripple of surprise through the mansion. Regina's face, once so proud and unapproachable, now held a softness that was almost unrecognizable. She stood there for a moment, silently watching Alina, as if searching for the right words. Alina, sensing a shift in the air, turned toward her. Regina spoke quietly, her voice almost vulnerable. "You were right," she said, her words slowly dripping with honesty. "I've spent my life thinking that I had to control everything. I thought that's what made me strong, but I see now, it's not control I needed, it was peace." Alina didn't know how to respond. She had never imagined Regina would admit such a thing, let alone say it to her face. She simply nodded, offering a small, encouraging smile. "It's never too late to find peace," she replied softly. "You just have to be willing to let go of what's been holding you back." From that moment on, something remarkable began to unfold. Regina no longer sought to dominate her staff, and the maids, who had once been fearful of her, began to see a different side of her. There was no longer an oppressive weight in the mansion, no more whispers of fear in the corners. Instead, there was laughter, warmth, and a quiet sense of camaraderie. Regina had changed, and with her the entire household had transformed. Days turned into weeks, and Regina became more open, more compassionate. Her conversations with Alina shifted from the mundane to the meaningful. Regina confided in Alina about her struggles, how she had been forced into a marriage she had never wanted, how she had lived her life in the shadow of a reputation she could never escape, how she had clung to control as a means of protecting herself from the overwhelming emptiness she felt inside. For the first time, Regina was able to see that her anger had been a barrier between herself and the rest of the world, a barrier she had built to protect herself from vulnerability, but in truth, it had only made her more isolated. Alina, too, had undergone a transformation. Her quiet strength and empathy had not only helped her survive in Regina's world, it had helped her thrive. She had faced her fears head-on and had come out stronger, more confident. The relationship between her and Regina grew into one of mutual respect. Alina no longer felt like a mere maid. She was a trusted ally, someone Regina could turn to for advice, for solace, for understanding. They had formed a bond that was unbreakable. And then something even more unexpected happened. Regina invited Alina to a charity gala, something she had never done for any of the other maids. The event was a symbol of Regina's rebirth, her willingness to step out of her gilded cage and show the world the woman she had become. As they stood side by side in their glamorous gowns, Regina introduced Alina to the guests as her dear friend. It was a simple gesture, but it spoke volumes. Alina had gone from being a servant to being recognized as an equal, someone worthy of respect and admiration. As the evening unfolded, Regina took a moment to reflect on how far she had come. Her life, once marked by fear and control, was now filled with peace and understanding. She had learned that strength wasn't about holding power over others. It was about embracing vulnerability and connecting with those around her. The mansion, once a prison of fear, had become a sanctuary of trust, growth, and transformation. In the final moments of the evening, as Regina and Alina shared a quiet moment away from the crowd, Regina looked at Alina with gratitude in her eyes. "You've done the impossible," she said softly. You've shown me a path I never thought I could walk. You've shown me how to truly live, not just survive." Alina smiled, her heart swelling with pride. "We all have the power to change." She replied, "Sometimes all it takes is one person to believe it's possible." And as the night wore on, the mansion stood as a symbol of a new beginning, a beginning born from courage, compassion, and the unwavering belief that change was always possible, even in the most unlikely of places. As the mansion's gates closed behind them that evening, it wasn't just the end of another chapter, it was the beginning of something profound. Regina's transformation wasn't just about breaking old habits. It was about breaking free from the chains of fear and pride that had held her captive for so long. Alina, the once timid maid, had shown her that strength lies in kindness, and the true measure of success isn't found in wealth or power, but in the lives we touch and the hearts we change. So, as you walk through your own challenges, remember this: sometimes the greatest transformation begins with a single act of courage. Whether it's standing up for yourself, offering compassion when it's least expected, or simply believing in the impossible, your strength has the power to change not only your world, but the world of those around you. No matter where you're starting from, change is possible. All it takes is one person to make a stand, and the ripple effect can transform everything. So what will you choose today? Will you be the one to break the cycle? Will you be the one to do the impossible? The choice is yours. Never underestimate the power of one act of courage.